Welcome, everybody. My name is David Bowders, and welcome to another Ignite series interview. I'm here today with Brian Fitzgerald. Brian is the Vice President of Revenue Optimization and Business Intelligence. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you've been working over the last several years with Turtle on a number of different important transformation initiatives of the company. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started on this journey and a little bit about Turtle?
Sure thing. So Turtle we're just celebrated our 100th anniversary. So we've been in business since 1923, starting in Lower Manhattan. And now we are pretty much have a national footprint from the Northeast to, the New York, New Jersey area to the Gulf Coast and out in California. Some of the initiatives that we're driving it's funny, you and I were talking, our CEO and our co-CEOs. So we just announced Louis Valls is now our new co-CEO, along with Jane Millard, who's also the owner of the company. They just went over to Dubai for the COP28 conference, and they came back with that. From that conference with some huge initiatives that we have opportunities for Turtle. We're looking at partnering with a lot of these companies that are cutting edge, whether it's converting hydrogen into energy or any of these new initiatives they have going forward. We're looking to partner with these type of companies. And the funny thing is, we were over there with a number of our major vendors also. So, it was a great opportunity for us to kind of partner with them, especially going after these new opportunities in these, the climate change and the sustainability arena as far as the marketplace is concerned.
So for companies in the electrical space, obviously the whole decarbonization and green initiatives are a major business opportunity in terms of helping end users, in terms of helping institutions, utilities, all of these different layers of the ecosystem to become more green friendly, let's just say. Can you talk about who some of these customers are and what types of initiatives are helping to make a difference?
So from what I've found out from them coming back, it was that one of the major vendors over there was Eaton Corporation, right? And Eaton has a huge initiative on this. And like you said, they're focused on decarbonization, right? It's now what everyone's realizing is that, I guess we're going to miss these goals that everybody has set forth. So they are focusing more on decarbonization and looking for ways to remove carbon, obviously, and reduce their carbon footprint. One of the key vendors that we're looking at, like I said before, they actually take hydrogen and they actually convert it. And one of the byproducts of this hydrogen process is a material that's very eco-friendly, but can be used in everyday things like plastics, concrete. It's very, very cutting edge as far as that's concerned. One of our other vendors, Genlight, is a lighting manufacturer, and they're actually taking all that waste plastic that is in the ocean, like fishing lines and that type of plastics that's polluting the oceans, and they're actually processing that into their lighting fixtures. So we look at this as a huge opportunity for us to partner with those type of companies and actually, go with the core values of Turtle and Hughes, which one of those core values is sustainability.
That's great. I think what's really needed is for folks with commercial interests to be leading the way in so many ways, because when it's government led, a lot of times it just doesn't connect with the people in the real economy who are making decisions on a daily basis.
Yeah.
As you guys think beyond the green opportunities, which obviously create a whole bunch of new just markets for you and also opportunities to innovate in the business, what are some of the other initiatives that Turtle's focused on?
Well, as I mentioned, it's our 100th anniversary. And with that, we rebranded. We used to be known as Turtle and Hughes, and now we're just Turtle. And Mr. Hughes passed away back in the 20s, quite frankly. So it's been Turtle for a long time, and everyone else called it Turtle, but we now rebranded it as Turtle. One of the key things is we have two different divisions. We have an integrated supply division that would go to large corporations like a J&J or a Merck, and we would actually provide them with a sole source integrated supply solution. And then we have the traditional infrastructure electrical division, right, which is our larger division, but those two were kind of always separated. There was kind of a firewall. And so what our next initiative is an enterprise selling concept, a one turtle concept, where we actually can bring the powers of both those organizations and provide solutions to our customers, where we kind of can cross that firewall, if you will, as far as providing solutions on integrated supply, if they're using vending machines, and then also from the distribution side, providing our engineering expertise and our supply expertise to provide, and our sourcing expertise to provide the products that they need for their infrastructure.
And I know your title is one part of your title is around revenue optimization. Can you talk a little bit about some of the initiatives that you have on revenue optimization?
Yeah. Obviously, we partner with SPARXiQ for about a year and a half now, almost 2 years, right? And we've had great success with this. One of the things it's funny, I was talking with Jane just yesterday, our CEO, and she always grabs me and says, "How are we doing with this?" And I said, SPARXiQ is more of a cultural change for Turtle and Hughes than it is anything. It's a true change management tool. The mechanics and the math and the statistics and all that sort of stuff, that's a key part of it. And that's what most people focus on. It's truly the behavior change of getting the favorite number charts out to every inside salesperson, or talking with every sales leader to make sure that they're reviewing that data with that. And with that, just last year, we had a $5 million price realization across the whole organization. It's absolutely phenomenal results. And I attribute a lot of that to SPARXiQ. And we have no good deed goes unpunished. So we have a stretch goal going this year of an additional $2 million. And we're already ahead of plan as far as that's concerned.
Well, it's always exciting to help distributors to not only create value for their customers, but also to capture value. Yeah. A lot of companies spend so much energy on the value creation, and then they let themselves down when they don't put in place the tools, the training, the technology, the culture to get paid for the value they create. And that's really a lose-lose in the marketplace. Customers are worse off because their suppliers don't have the resources to innovate. They don't have the confidence that they can capture their own rewards from innovation. And so they tend to be very passive and reactive. And so as we work with distributors, we really hope to help them connect with their organizations to see that capturing value in the marketplace is just as important as creating value. Can you talk about some of the challenges that Turtle had to overcome with the sales teams in order to be successful?
I mean, it's, like I said, I've said this a few times already, we're 100 years old. So we had some culture that was actually in place. I joke that I'm 57 and most of my sales guys are older than I am. So I had some definite cultural changes that we had to go through. And we also had a systems issues, we've never really focused on pricing as, we just let salespeople do the pricing in our organization. We never really had a structured pricing organization. So we are basically starting with the basic building blocks of putting those tools into our ERP system, utilizing SPARXiQ's dashboards to help us drive us in the right direction. And then we're constantly, I give you guys credit. You're constantly pushing us and making us reevaluate what we've done and actually stretch to get incremental growth in the margins and space, to focus on, hey, there's opportunities for us to have more granularity here, give us more precision so that we can actually have more dials to tune so that we actually capture more margin.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because, we work with so many distributors, not only in electrical, but across a broad diversity of verticals. And it's really interesting to think about how many distributors have no concept of how much profit is leaking through their fingers on a daily basis. One of the things I found gratifying about our work with Turtle has been, we've really given intensive scrutiny to where are all the leakage points. And sometimes they were around customer specific pricing. A lot of it came from overrides and salespeople making things up as they go along. And a lot of times there were some relatively simple fixes along the way, like giving an indication to order writers when they're in the ERP system that this is not something you should be overriding, and really helping them to have a more confidence around the types of behavioral change we're looking for.
Yeah, I have a red box that will come up in the ERP system that is a visual indicator of, for two cases. One is if it's a non-core C&D item, which if you're a SPARXiQ customer, you know what that means, that you shouldn't touch the price. Let the pricing matrix be your guide and just use that. We allow them to override it for commercial situations, but it's a guidance. It's a visual reminder to tell them, hey, don't touch that particular the price on that particular item. And then the other thing is, we do a lot of sourcing from a sales standpoint. We do a lot of directs. Our mix is 60-40 more directs, if you will. And so on the non-stocks, we also have another visual indicator that says, hey, if you're going to source this particular item, here's the target margin that you should be selling this when you do source this. We never gave any guidance in the past. Like you said, it was a gut feel. It was just, somebody grabbing a number out of the air and say, oh, let's put 20 on it, right? What we've determined is based on our history and what we were able to capture. That's, as you said, that's a major leak of margin for us. And we're actually starting to see more return on our investment on that little reminder. We see our direct volume and our direct margins going up because of that.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating because a lot of companies struggle with pricing overrides where salespeople actually believe that pricing is a core part of their job. And so when you present them with system pricing, they feel like they're not doing their job unless they make up something different from what was presented to them. And in terms of using real market pricing, when we look at the overrides, we see over and over again the prevalence, the exaggerated prevalence of zeros and fives.
Oh my,
this margin. And you think about this was supposed to be where competitive circumstances forced you to deviate from system pricing. Instead, it turns out that it's just their carousel of zeros and fives. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's funny because that's one of the biggest impacts is, we use one of the outputs from the SPARXiQ dashboard is a histogram that shows the favorite numbers, right? And we give we now every month, every inside salesperson and their manager is getting a PowerPoint presentation with their specific chart so they know exactly where they are and what their favorite numbers are. And then the guidance that we gave to our sales leaders is let's have a conversation. We've never talked about price before. We're now having conversation about let's talk about price, let's talk about margin and moving that. And I have a great little anecdote. I was in Boston and, there was an inside sales leader there and I've been in the business for 40 years. You're trying to tell me what to do and all this sort of stuff. And I said, just try it. Just try it. You'll see. We kind of broke apart. At lunchtime, he came back to me and he was all like, he's like, I'm mad at you, Brian. I tried it and I actually got the order. So it was one of those things where just a little anecdote of, somebody that was dead set against something. He tried it. He actually got an order, made more margin. He was happy about it. And he actually called me 3 more times later that day on my way home to tell me that he got more orders. So it's a true cultural change. It's a change management tool also to allow us to give all our inside salespeople and outside salespeople the tools so they can make informed decisions and then drive the behavior we're looking for.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because SPARXiQ, we also own a marketplace, buyers of commercial contractors from distributors in the electrical industry. And when we talk to these contractors over and over again, they say, these are our criteria for buying from a supplier. Number 1, in-stock availability. Number 2, geolocation close to the point of need. Number 3, service quality. Number 4, price. And I started trying to reconcile, how can this be true? What they've told us very specifically, I've interviewed dozens of these contractors now, and the patterns rarely deviate. Obviously, there's huge buyouts where they are price sensitive, but over, I think it's over 90% of transactions and over 40% of revenue are, over 60% of revenue are, I need it right away. And I'm not really buying based on price. And I try to reconcile that with the typical distributors, sales teams who are overriding 30, 40, 50% of the time, even 60% of the time. And I think it's based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what's really going on in the buying process. Like we interviewed one electrical distributor sales teams, and we interviewed the head of customer service to say, why are these people overriding so much? And he said, because they asked for a quote. And we said, okay, they asked for a quote, but does that mean it was a competitive quote? And he said, of course it does. And I said, that's not true. I said, over 90% of quotes that are sent out are not competitive quotes. They're single source quotes. And these are people who are simply trying to check availability. They want to know what is the pricing for budgeting purposes or other purposes. And yet this distributor, their CSRs on a daily basis, were treating every one of those as if it was going out for competitive quoting. It just didn't make any sense. And that misunderstanding of the difference between asking for a quote and asking for a competitive quote was costing them millions and millions of dollars. It's truly a travesty.
It's amazing when you challenge that very premise that you're talking about there, and when you see someone actually get an order and realize that they can actually make more money, quite frankly, by just simply upping that margin a little bit, and then they can stretch it and stretch it until they figure out what that point is. There's a certain inherent fear that I don't want to lose an order, right? And so that if I'm safe at 5%, I'll always write an order at 5%. But the fact is, there's as you said, there's so much more margin. It's not it's what would you say, fourth on their list of items that, as far as their concerns, they're more concerned about availability and does it meet their specifications. And there's a whole list of items before price is even considered. So
what's interesting is really, the job of a good distributor and a good distributor salesperson is to make sure you nail it on the first three criteria. Yeah. Make sure you've got the right product stocking in your branch. Make sure you've got, you've got your branches in the right place, that you have the right, stocking SKUs so that they're available quickly. And then making sure you have a good do to say ratio. Are you actually delivering on your promises? And if you do those things well, pricing is a great opportunity for you. And if you're not doing those things well, pricing can't fix it. I mean, what the contractors have told us over and over again is they're going to buy from their preferred suppliers, even if they're not the lowest priced. And I think, the sales teams that use price as a substitute for value are going to see that they have both lower margins and lower share of wallet with their customers.
Yes, absolutely.
And I know the other part of your job is around business intelligence. Can you talk a little bit about some of the key business problems that you're trying to solve on the BI front?
So it's funny. I was just looking. EW had their market data coming out today, and we're looking at forecasting as far as where we expect the markets to go. But another part of my we're using that as far as our strategic planning. So Lewis is our co-CEO. He's having a board review next month, and part of that is just the strategic plan on how we can continue to grow the business. And we have some expansion plans, some organic expansion plans in different territories as we go. And we use this data that we're getting either from EW or from different market base like NAD to actually determine what that potential is in those particular markets. The other thing that I follow quite a lot, so before I implemented SPARXiQ, I implemented Salesforce as a CRM for Turtle and Hughes, and we're using that tool. I would love to say 100%, but it's again a cultural change to get people to use it. We use it quite effectively though to track opportunities and actually see what our pipeline of opportunities are coming in and what our hit rate is, and where we can actually grow the business. And that's been actually quite effective, trying to do that. And I'm kind of I like numbers. I have an engineering degree, so I put as much data in Salesforce so that when a salesperson opens up their account package in Salesforce, they can actually they'll see like a SPARXiQ, your share of wallet data, that's in there, their sales history, their open orders. So I give them kind of the dashboard, if you will, right there on their phone, so that they actually can be informed when they're actually going in and making a sales call. And so they're not walking in just bringing in donuts and saying, hey, how you doing today?
So that single source of truth, having a place for them to find the truth to their most pressing questions. is a big part of the BI journey. It's not so much about the power user. Obviously, every company can stand up a power user, but it's really how do you democratize the insights and help your frontline sellers on a daily basis, or other personas in the organization, to be more data driven in their decision making, and to just be more intentional about how they spend their time. It sounds like this journey at Turtle is, I think a lot of the cultural change that you're talking about is a big part a result of the initiatives that you select and how you engage with these folks. Can you talk a little bit about the thread that connects all these initiatives? What does it feel like to be a Turtle frontline seller today?
So with all that, I mean, from a frontline seller today is now got, quite frankly, more tools in their basket, if you will, to actually go out and help them sell. We're looking for the sustainabilities. We have requirements from our customers, like a J&J, that says you have to have these certain requirements. You have to have, a certain sustainability measurement in order for them to consider you as a vendor. We also have, when we're doing, we do a lot in the infrastructure space, and so we sell a lot to government agencies, and so we actually also have to provide them with all that information as far as our ESG score and our DEI initiative. So we have a lot of this stuff that is, kind of out there as far as industry is concerned, and we're not, we're not a large corporations. We're a big company, but we're not a major multinational, and so we have to use the tools that we have, and we have to be smarter about it, and take the data that we have and use partners like SPARX and partners like other vendors that we have to help us pull this data together to provide the solutions that we need to for our customers. So our frontline sellers, we try to make this as simple as possible. From when I'm in corporate, I'm looking at this, and I don't want them to be out looking for everything. We want to give them the tools right there so that it makes it easy for them. So we have spaces like a Work Vivo. That's a space that we can share all that collateral, if you will, that allows them to pull that data down and give it to their customers, or they can pull it up on their phone if they're in Salesforce. Every month they're getting emails from us as far as their pricing initiatives. So we're trying to give them the data in a useful format that allows them to make informed decisions when they're making judgment calls at their customers.
It seems like, in the Turtle organization now, through all these different initiatives, you can see an organization that's committed to constructive change, and that there isn't any just hanging out and doing things the old way. I think it's a real tribute to your work and the work of your colleagues that you've been able to marshal this much energy to transform the business, especially for a 100-year-old company.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, a lot of this, Jane Millard, our CEO, she's very progressive in this in her thinking, and she's looking at this as an opportunity to take us in the next 100 years to continue to grow. It doesn't want to be the same old Turtle where we've just sold stuff. We want to be creative, provide value solutions to our customers, give them the tools to help them be very successful. And the world's changing with all the the green initiatives and the DEI and the ESG, and we have to give them the tools so that they actually can succeed also.
Well, it's been great to spend some time with you and learn about all the great progress at Turtle. Want to congratulate you on a lot of hard work and results that reward that hard work.
Well, thank you, David. It's been a pleasure working with your organization. It's been top notch in supporting us and actually helping us grow. So it's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you.
Yep.